on his exact cause of death. Listen to this.
With regards to that death certificate, does it list the cause of death?
Yes.
And what is that?
Multiple stab wounds with perforations of heart, lung, and liver.
All right, now Gigi in New York says, I object to the prosecution's wasting resources and time. The defendant is admitting to stabbing the victim. The bloody shirt, the Emmy's testimony is irrelevant. The only issue was John insane at the time. Mike.
I'm going to have to overrule her because the prosecution has to prove, yes, that he knew right from wrong at the time he did this. And that goes to what he did days before this, the day of, when he went into one boy's room, didn't find anybody there, went to the next one, and that was his victim. He had a knife in his bag, and he intended to use it that particular morning.
Okay, Joanna, what do you think?
Actually, oh my gosh, it's happening again. I am agreeing with Mr. Brooks. But the reason, wait a minute, hold on. Everybody don't fall off your chairs. The reason I'm agreeing, though, is somewhat different, is that in order to prove murder in the first degree in the Commonwealth here that we're dealing with, is that you also have to possibly show with extreme atrocity. And by going through the medical examination, they're also the medical records, they're showing just the specifics of the stab wounds and how egregious and grave and the way the child died, which is beyond sad.
Well, rare occurrence there. Mike and Joanna agreeing on that. But yeah, you're right.
It happens.
And you know, the other side of this, you're absolutely right. Extreme atrocity or premeditated, that means first-degree murder in this particular jurisdiction. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Joanna. And folks, what do you object to in this trial? Email us at InSession@CNN.com. Write I object in that subject line or write your comments on our blog, CNN.com/InSession. Well, the witness today has been Paul Odgren. He's been on the stand all morning. He's talked about the many schools his special needs son had to attend, and even talked about the emotional talk at the police station after he learned his son had stabbed another teen to death. That brings us to our question of the day. You've been watching his testimony. What else do you... Wald is here to help take your calls, as well as law enforcement contributor Mike Brooks. And let's start with Michelle in North Carolina. Michelle, how you doing today? And what else do you think that John Odgren's parents could have done to help their son?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. My comment is just that I don't want to condemn his parents at all because, of course, hindsight is 20/20. But I'm just wondering why they didn't homeschool him, why they didn't pull him out of the schools if the torturing started in second grade and just bring him home and teach him there.
That's a good point, Michelle, and thank you so much for that call. You know, Mike, I look at this situation and I see parents who love their son. They're trying to help their son. At the same time, they're saying he was bullied, that people were teasing him. I got to say, Michelle's got a really good option here. Why not take him out of the school, homeschool him? Because it wasn't just his impact on the other students.
Right.
He was...
Good evening.
Hi.
I think that I'm not going to say anything just as Michelle did. I'm going to say that they should have taken the time out to discipline him from the time he was born up until the time he had these problems, all throughout. And it's not physical discipline. They should have talked with him, spoke with him, taught him by their own example.
Wow. All right, Elaine, thank you for that call. Joanna, Elaine brings up such a good point here, because when you talk about discipline, it's communicating with your kids, but it's also this issue of maybe indulging some of the more morbid sides of what he was doing, something that I find unbelievable in many ways.
Well, my observation and what I've seen so far is, yes, you'd like to talk, and remember, that's as if the child has nothing wrong with the child. This child is not, you got to take the like it's called the eggshell plaintiff theory. Got to take the child as you find this child. This child is very, very sick. And it appears to me that there's a total disconnect and a total, almost a lack of appreciation. Not that the parents mean it, but maybe it's too painful because it's natural not to want to see just how sick their child truly is. Because I know when Mr. Brooks brought up about the stabbing in the chest when the child's in fourth grade, actually, and the father said, what are you going to do about that? Actually, as the caller just called in, normally you'd actually have a big deal about that. That's a big deal. You don't stab another child. And there is a kind of lack of appreciation of searching one's bag, but also, do you mainstream a child that is this sick? Is this child truly a danger? And it may have been too hard of a call for them psychologically to deal with, because we're watching him as a witness who totally is not appreciating and is totally disconnected to what his son has done.
You make an interesting point, but I want to turn to Mike about this as well. It's a very good point. It's a very good point. And we see him on the stand, Mike, and he is numb, and he is good points there. Thank you so much for that call. Joanna, I want to turn to you on this. You know, we're also talking about a doctor and a nurse. That's John Odgren's parents. Do you think the jury looks at this testimony, thinks about what our caller just said just now, and says, wait a second, is your burden a little bit higher? Shouldn't you have known a little bit more and done a little bit more about this?
Hence the Joanna sign.
What does that say?
How bad I have as if I were a defense attorney, and again, I'm a Monday morning quarterback over here, that as a witness, they know that this man is a doctor, the wife is a nurse, now not just parents. Now they're held to a super high standard of how do you not see this? How do you indulge a child that you know has so many different problems that possibly, at this point, I even think possibly even more misdiagnosed. We're missing some diagnoses here. And they indulge to make it even worse. How did they not see it? How did they not let it happen? Or continue to happen, for that matter, knowing when you take an oath as a doctor, nurse, lawyer, to protect others, how is it that they're not doing that? Yeah. So these people, this child who's sick as well, is going to get slammed, I believe, because you have someone who's one fruit short of a total fruit basket, unfortunately. Well, and what are you going to do about that except find someone, unfortunately, in a very bad position?
You know, it is so difficult to see how this testimony is going to impact it. When you read it like that, it sounds like it's going to hurt the defense more than help them. Very difficult
Kill me.
situation.
It's going to make me worse, so much worse.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Joanna, and to our callers as well. Well, Paul Odgren continues his